Right, guys and gals, welcome. I was watching a video the other day, and it kind of spurred this whole idea on tonight's or today's episode. And so, welcome back to Breaking the System. This is episode 80. We're really close to 100, so welcome back. And so today we're going to flip the lens, not metaphorically, but literally. And you've heard the line 1,000 times, and whenever another network of cameras goes up, if you're doing nothing wrong, then you have nothing to hide, right? What are you hiding, right? It's the stock defense for mass surveillance. So let's take the people who say it at their word. What happens if the same technology they use on the rest of us gets pointed back at, let's say, City Hall, municipal garbages, agency entrances, the garages, and the official vehicles paid for with our public money, with our taxes, right? And so that's the idea behind Sousveillance. Citizens using the tools of surveillance to watch the watchers. And the term comes from the work of researcher Steve Mann, who spent decades examining the power imbalance between those who observe and those who are observed. It's what they call a top-down surveillance, right? And that is by default. Sousveillance is the counterweight. And we're going to talk about that as soon as we come back.
The curtains rise, the lights burn bright. You're blinded now, can't see the fight. Smoke and mirrors, they lead the way. Fooling hearts night after day. Welcome to the show, it's all pretend. The smiles, the lies, the perfect end.
Right. We have with us today Drippy Dan Apollo. We call him Drippy Dan because, like, when he drinks water, he doesn't drink like a normal dog. He sticks like his whole face, his whole head in the water bowl. And then when he comes up, he just drips all over. So if someone knocks at the door or whatever, he'll start barking. We'll let him out. But Drippy Dan's with us today. And so we talked about flock the other day, and this is a big topic now, and it should be a big topic. It should be on everyone's proverbial radar, right? And so let's recap here just a little bit on what this system is and how it looks like. So flock safety and similar automated license plate readers, which is ALPR networks, sit at intersections across the country. We looked at their website the other day. We looked at DFlock, and DFlock actually shows us where all of the cameras are that they have located or GPSed, and they have supplied that information to us, the people, right? So these are all across the country. And so these solar-powered cameras capture license plates, the make, the model, the color, the bumper stickers, the roof racks, and what the company calls the vehicle fingerprint, right? We went over that. And so the data flows into a searchable cloud database, and an officer can query something as specific as maybe a red pickup, or like we talked about the other day, a white Ford F-150, okay? And they can also look at things like maybe a dented bumper, and it was heading west, and it was at 2 p.m., right? And they can pull the movement history of that vehicle, which could potentially be a good thing. When people raise Fourth Amendment concerns about the dragnet, the legal response is usually the same. Driving on public roads carries a reduced expectancy of privacy. Courts have largely accepted that premise for ordinary drivers. If we apply the same logic evenly, city council members drive on public roads. They do. Department heads drive taxpayer-funded vehicles. They do. And if scanning plates on public streets is not a search when done to residents, then an open source reader mounted on private property and aimed at the entrances of municipal lots is not a search either. at least not under the rules the government has already accepted for everyone else, right? Rules for thee, but not for me. Keep that in mind, okay? And then apply that to all the other things that the proverbial system, right, has set in motion, right, that deems that our officials can do, but we can't, okay? We need to shut those systems down, right? It's the whole point of breaking the system. And so let's look at public records and the recent rulings. Here's where the machinery starts to show its seams. Official calendars, government emails, and city vehicle usage logs are already public records under sunshine laws and FOIA, that's FOIA, style statutes in most states. The technology is catching up to that principle. In November of last year, Saget County Superior Court Judge Elizabeth Nedskwitzky ruled in the case involving the cities of Sedro-Woolley and Stanwood against registered Jose Rodriguez. The cities had sought a declaration that flock cameras, their images stored in the vendor's cloud, were not public records. The court rejected that argument. The images were generated for a governmental purpose, paid for with public funds, and therefore subject to Washington's Public Records Act. An agency does not have to physically possess a record for it to qualify, and the third-party cloud arrangement did not ease public ownership or erase it. Okay? Since California's earlier ACLU litigation over bulk ALPR data reached a related but distinct conclusion, the state Supreme Court held that indiscriminate plate scans are not, quote-unquote, records of investigations under the specific law enforcement exemption, because the vast majority of the data has no connection to any particular crime. Privacy concerns still matter, and courts have sometimes found that raw, unredacted bulk data can be withheld under catch-all balancing tests. And the distinction between targeted investigative material and passive, continuous collection remains important. Okay? And so the practical upshot for citizens is straightforward. You do not necessarily need to install hardware to begin. Automated, repeated public records requests for city fleet GPS logs, flock or equivalent data involving official vehicles, expense reports, and lobbyist meeting records can be cross-referenced and published. A public dashboard showing an official vehicle leaving City Hall at 11:30 a.m., appearing at a private club parked at 11:45, while the calendar lists an infrastructured field inspection, is not harassment. It is the system's own data streams made visible. Okay? So what we're saying here is if they can use the flock system against us, why can't we, the people, use the flock system against them? We should, if they're going to embrace it, we should embrace it, but for a different reason. In front of every government official, we're talking about like local, we're not talking about like the White House or anything, right? Because that kind of stuff is a little bit, right? We've got to think about these things. But local systems, local government, let's watch them. Make it a Truman Show. Put it on 24/7. So you and I can log in to whatever government agency, right? Make a username, make a password, and we log in, and we're able to see that the mayor is doing the mayoral jobs where he says he's supposed to be, right? Not only at the mayor's office, but at secretaries or the treasury or the police stations, whether if they're local or state or whatever. Not only that, but we should be able to log in and see like where they've been, where they're headed, maybe their calendar, right? But not so much that we don't want to get into their private life, and that's why the boundary still matters, right? And so authorities will immediately raise physical security, swatting risks, and the need for operational secrecy around certain law enforcement or executive movements. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, not everything should be made public, but at the end of the day, they are still people that we have voted on and put them in these positions, and we should be able to see that they are doing their job as we want them to be. Right? No closed doors sessions. I've talked about this. Okay? And so those concerns are not imaginary. Like, we don't want 100% transparency, just a little bit more than what we're getting, right? Wouldn't you like to have a little bit more transparency in what your government is doing and how they're spending your dime? I know I would, okay? And so there is a clear legal and ethical line between monitoring city-owned vehicles during business hours for things like accountability. And there's a big difference between targeting an official's personal vehicle and or their family movements. Like, we don't want to do that, right? Stalking and harassment statutes exist for a reason. We don't want to cross those boundary lines, right? Because crossing into the private life turns oversight into something else. And if we wouldn't like that, then our city officials wouldn't like that either. But if they're clocking in, and if they're working and we're paying their dime, right? Taxpayers, right? We're paying their dime for them to do what we vote them in to do. I think there should be a little bit more transparency. And so if they want all of these flock cameras and all of this data so that they can look at it, right? And they can watch you and make sure that you're not doing anything illegal, let's flip the script. The shoe should be on the other foot, so to speak, and we should have the same access. We should be able to see what the mayor is doing, what the governor is doing, what bills are they signing, right? When do they get into the office? Who are they meeting with? What is the itinerary, right? And it should be a little bit more transparent than having to do FOIA requests for any of this stuff. Like, you should still be able to FOIA request like big things, but like the day in and day out, let's make it more transparent. That's all we're asking for, right? And so if our government officials are against this, then they should be against monitoring and recording us 24/7, right? Rules for thee, but not for me, right? Let's think about these things. And so agencies already log where ordinary drivers go every day, their homes, their workplaces, their places of worship, without individual warrants, on the theory that public roads erase privacy expectations, suggesting the same passive tools be used to verify whether an elected official actually works the hours they claimed or resides in the district they represent, is often treated as an outrageous intrusion. It is, right? And so the double standard is the point worth examining, and that's what I'm talking about. There is a double standard when we talk about our elected officials, right? And it's not just the mayors and the governors, like any and all elected official. We should be able to know if they're going to work and doing the job that we pay them to do. And if not, just like you and I can get fired from our jobs, they should be able to get fired for theirs immediately. We call an emergency voting session down at the courthouse or wherever, and boom, we vote them out right then and there. We vote somebody else in. It makes it super easy, right? We've got to stop this double standard BS. We have to start taking our government back instead of our government making it harder and harder and harder for you and I to live free while in the background, they still take more and more and more of our constitutional rights away from us every day. And if you don't think that the flock cameras violate constitutional rights, well, then maybe you need to go back and read that again. Or maybe you should go over to a different country and see what they do over there, right? Might give you a little bit more appreciation for the rights and privileges that we have as Americans under the Constitution. And so let's look at 3 practical tiers here. If the goal is to reduce the asymmetry rather than simply invert it, the workable approach falls into clear categories, and there's 3 of those. Open data aggregation. Scrape and publish existing public feeds, official calendars, meeting logs, flight tracking on government aircraft where available, and systematic FOIA or public records pools for fleet vehicle data. Right? Publish it. Publish it all. Why not? We pay for it. It's our dime. It's our dollar. Right? Facility-focused monitoring. Open source plate readers placed on private property and aimed strictly at the public entrance of government buildings, like City Hall. Agency headquarters, zoning offices, not just residential addresses. And I would also encourage you to look at some other activists who have been flipping the script on Flock, and look at how Flock hates being recorded. These people will sit outside of a Flock headquarters or a place where Flock is supposedly doing business, and they will record the cars coming in and going out, and the people going in the building and coming out of the building. And guess what happens? Law enforcement shows up and they kick those people, or they arrest those people out of that area. And then you ask why. Why can I not stand on a public easement like a sidewalk and record? Because that is a constitutional right. I can do that. But why can I not do that at Flock? Why can I not record Flock and their people working if their people are recording me working or driving down the road or pulling into my place of business? That's a double standard once again, okay? And that's all we're asking is for fair and equal surveillance. If we're going to have surveillance, we do it across everything all the time, and we make it accessible to everyone, okay? And the last one is institutional focus. Keep the lens on official duties, public access, and government operations. Personal privacy boundaries still apply, and the pressure belongs on the institution, not the private individual. So Sousveillance is not a new invention. It is the logical extension of the same transparency principles governments already claim to accept when the cameras face outward, when the cameras face on you and I, right? So as always, we end with a critical thinking question, right? If a society decides that passive continuous location tracking is acceptable for the public under the premise of safety, can public officials legitimately claim a right to privacy while operating on the public dime? Or does accepting public office require waiving that expectation entirely? Okay, and that is a big one, because I do think that Flock is not going anywhere, because if the company dies out for whatever reason, I think there's going to be another company that's going to come in and it's going to do the same thing, maybe just a little bit different, right? And they're going to do the same crap that Flock's been doing. They're going to sell themselves to county boards, to state, to federal agencies as this, and those people are going to sell it to us as this, and we're going to accept it because we don't show up to those meetings. We don't hold our city count or town board people accountable for anything, right? And life's going to go on just as it is today, okay? We have to wake up and realize that this is what it is. This is the future. And if you don't like it, we have to break the system. We need transparency on all of this stuff. You have to show up. You have to be accountable. And you have to hold your government officials accountable for what they say they're going to do when they're going to do it, right? If they're going to record us, we need to be able to record them. So think about those things. Put those comments down, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me. Put them all down. Let's talk about it. Let's have that conversation, because this is something that we haven't been doing for a while, is having these conversations on both sides of the aisle when we don't agree or when we do agree. And how do we handle these situations, right? The whole reason that the government is winning is because you and I aren't talking. We're not coming to the table. We're not sitting down, and we're not holding our government accountable anymore. And the last time that we held our government accountable, we really held them accountable, we have a revolution, right? And so maybe it's time that we start holding people accountable. And maybe it's time that we have our own kind of revolution and our own kind of revelation into what kind of future we want to leave for our kids and what kind of freedoms we want to give up. All right. And with that, this is Breaking the System, episode 80. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and keep breaking the system. God bless. Good night. Have a good day.
Yeah. It don't rot overnight, you know. It fades. Slow. Silent. Sweet. Like poison in the ink. Yeah, we build our walls out of words and pride. Now the cracks run deep where the truth once lied. Screens for temples, code for creed. We worship the lie that feeds our feet. Every echo shake, every thought rehearsed. History written in reverse. The prophets scroll, the prophets